Friends, there is a man named Jay Prakash, who is around 50 years old. He is the landowner of the village and holds a lot of influence and respect in the community. Jay Prakash, in an unexpected turn of events, manages to entangle his own daughter-in-law in his web of deceit. Taking advantage of the situation, he begins to exploit her, pushing boundaries in a way that deeply affects her. For a while, his daughter-in-law, despite the situation, participates in what seems like a twisted game of manipulation, enjoying things she had never experienced before. This strange and disturbing affair between them lasts for about 4 months. But what happens next, no one could have ever imagined, something that completely changes the course of events. Yes, friends, after hearing this incident, you might be left in shock, so stay with us till the end of this video as it holds a major lesson for all of us. Before we move forward, we have a small request. Please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and if you're watching from anywhere, make sure to comment your name and city so we can mention you in our next video. This is a true incident from Jaipur, India. In a small family under the jurisdiction of Jaipur city, there is the head of the family, Jay Prakash. He's a strong, robust man in his 50s and also the village landowner. He holds significant influence and is highly respected in the village, often consulted by the villagers for their problems. He owns a lot of property, land, and has many servants. There were servants who worked at Jay Prakash's house. His wife had passed away 3 years ago due to an illness. Jay Prakash had an only son, Vinod, who was around 25 years old. Vinod had completed his education and worked as an engineer at a company. As a young man of 25, Vinod's father was worried about his son's marriage. He thought it was time to get him married as soon as possible, so he started asking his friends and relatives to help him find a good match for Vinod. 2 months passed and then a marriage proposal arrived. The girl's name was Neelam and she was around 20 years old. Neelam was very beautiful and everyone admired her looks. However, Neelam was indifferent to everyone. Jay Prakash, along with his son Vinod, went to Neelam's house to meet her. When Neelam came before him, Jay Prakash immediately liked her, and without hesitation he told her parents that they liked their daughter. Jay Prakash took out a hefty amount of money from his pocket, handed it to Neelam, and told her, "From today, you are our daughter-in-law." The relationship was finalized and 3 months went by. The day arrived when Vinod, now the groom, brought the marriage procession to Neelam's house. After their wedding, Vinod took Neelam as his bride and brought her home. That night, Neelam sat in her room waiting for her husband, Vinod. At around 11 p.m., Vinod entered her room. When he lifted her veil, he was overjoyed to see her because she was incredibly beautiful. Vinod was thinking of celebrating their wedding night in a grand way. They talked for about an hour, getting to know each other better. After the conversation, they prepared to begin their first night together. In just a few minutes, Vinod discharges and falls asleep. Neelam, on the other hand, is left thinking about how she had wanted this night to be memorable, but her husband didn't cooperate. She wonders if perhaps it's because it was their first night together, and people tend to feel nervous, which could be why he couldn't last more than a few minutes. She tries to convince herself that this might be the reason and then falls asleep, waiting for the next night. The following evening, around 9 p.m., Neelam sits in her room waiting for Vinod. When he enters, he lies down to sleep. Neelam, still thinking about the previous night, says, "You're sleeping already. I wanted us to have a special night. Yesterday was supposed to be our wedding night, and I hoped we'd make it memorable, but you couldn't even stay awake for more than a couple of minutes. I have my own desires, my own needs. If you can't fulfill them, who will?" Vinod, tired, replies, "I'm just really sleepy. I'm exhausted. You should get some sleep too." Neelam reluctantly agrees and falls asleep. For the next few days, Vinod keeps making excuses, saying he's either tired, not feeling well, or just too sleepy. This goes on for about a week.
"You're useless. You've ruined my life. If I had known you were like this, I would never have married you."
"I've been to so many doctors, tried every remedy they suggested. Nothing has worked. What do you expect me to do?"
Outside, in the dimly lit corridor, Vinod's father, Jay Prakash, overheard the heated argument. He stood still, his expression unreadable, listening as the tension unfolded behind the closed door. Neelam stormed out of the room. She went straight to the kitchen, where she busied herself with chopping vegetables, her hands trembling with lingering anger. A few minutes later, Jai Prakash entered the kitchen. When he saw Neelam, her face still flushed from the argument, he paused. Something about the situation seemed to unsettle him, though he said nothing. Their eyes met briefly, and an awkward silence filled the room. Neelam, feeling exposed under his gaze, quickly retreated to her room, where she lay down, staring at the ceiling, her emotions in turmoil. By 9 in the morning the next day, the household routine resumed. Vinod dressed for work, and Neelam handed him his tiffin with a strained smile before he left. As the morning progressed, Neelam returned to the kitchen to prepare lunch. Jai Prakash sat nearby, instructing a servant to massage his head. He began to reminisce aloud about his youth, his words taking on a cruder tone as he boasted of his strength and conquests.
Chuckles awkwardly.
But as Jai Prakash's stories grew more suggestive, an uneasy tension filled the room. When the servant left to run an errand, Jai Prakash turned to Neelam.
Beta, my head is still aching. Would you massage it for me?
Neelam hesitated, but eventually stepped forward, pouring oil into her hands. As she began massaging his head, Jai Prakash leaned back, his eyes closed, a faint smile on his lips. The atmosphere between them shifted, charged with an undercurrent that neither openly acknowledged, but both seemed to understand. In the following weeks, the dynamic between Neelam and Jai Prakash changed. Their interactions became laden with unspoken tension. What started as stolen glances and hesitant touches evolved into secret encounters. Neelam, frustrated by her strained marriage, found herself drawn into a relationship with her father-in-law, a bond born of rebellion and suppressed desires. Months passed, their clandestine affair hidden from the rest of the household. But secrets have a way of surfacing. One day, Neelam fell ill. She began vomiting uncontrollably, her complexion pale and her strength waning. Concerned, Vinod rushed to her side.
Neelam, what's wrong? Are you all right?
Neelam avoided his gaze, her thoughts racing. The weight of her choices and the consequences they might bring loomed over her like a shadow, threatening to unravel the fragile balance of their lives. Neelam, clearly distressed, says she is not well and needs medicine. Vinod, looking deeply concerned, responds that he will head to the nearby hospital to get a doctor. Later, in the same house, a lady doctor examines Neelam. She turns to Vinod with a smile and says there is good news. Vinod is going to become a father. Vinod, stunned and lost in thought, questions silently how this is possible. He knows he hasn't been intimate with his wife. Vinod's initial shock turns to anger. He accuses Neelam of betrayal, saying she has left him with nothing. He demands to know who she has been unfaithful with and whose child she is carrying. Jai Prakash intervenes, revealing that it is his child Neelam is carrying. Vinod, feeling utterly betrayed, declares that both Neelam and Jai Prakash have ruined his life and left him with no options. He vows not to spare either of them and threatens to report the matter to the police. Fear grips Jai Prakash and his wife as they try to reason with Vinod, begging for forgiveness. However, Vinod remains resolute and calls the police. Soon the authorities arrive and inquire about the matter. Vinod discloses everything, accusing both of betrayal and deceit. He alleges that behind his back they indulged in immoral acts, resulting in his wife's pregnancy. The police take both Jai Prakash and Vinod's wife to the station for questioning. They ask the wife, Neelam, whether she acted willingly or was forced. To everyone's shock, Neelam admits it was all consensual. Left with no legal grounds to act, the police release the two. The purpose of sharing this incident is not to upset or hurt anyone, but to raise awareness and caution you about such situations. Stay safe and take care of yourself and your loved ones. We'll meet again in the next video.